Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irene. I'm the host here. And today I have Isabell Kraemer with me here. Welcome to Fiberchats.
Hello.
So it was so lovely to finally meet you in person, and we got to just sit, have some beer, and chat a little bit in Barcelona. It was like really lovely. And then I saw you getting up and being swarmed by the fans. Does it feel strange, like when you're coming to festivals like this, that you can have these moments of just sitting and chatting and like hanging out with new and old friends, and then you're going and you remember why you're there?
I wouldn't call it strange. I totally get that feeling that knitters have because I at some point had these feelings too. It is a bit strange for me because I always forget to then behave, not sitting there smoking a cigarette or sipping a beer in the afternoon. So it's
Well,
a
let's
yeah.
let's let's talk a little bit about the proper behavior, because in reality, like maybe that's what attracts people to your designs, because you're very real, you're very contemporary, you're very casual in your designs. All your pictures on Ravelry are in jeans with the tank tops or not showing. And I actually wanted to ask you about that. Like, is that by design? Do you want that casual atmosphere and like everyday sweater kind of feel from your pictures?
Yes, definitely. I want people to see that real thing, not that curated photo of a model in a beautiful surrounding. It's me. I think we can tell that to your listeners. Most of my photos are taken in our restroom. The only it's the only that not the only room, but we are living in a very small house, a very old house. So there is not that much light. It's a
Yeah.
smaller house, so all the others around are higher. So I don't have that much daylight. And the lighting in that restroom and the white walls
Right.
are just perfect during the year. And with time, I found like the good positions where to stand and how to look and whatever. So yeah. These designs are all my babies. And it's not like a promotional reason that I wear that now. I'm just wearing it because it's cold here, it's windy here. So I would go and see how I feel today. Do I feel colorful? Do I feel like whatever? And pick one of my samples to wear them.
Well, let's
So,
talk about colorful, because in somewhere I heard you referring to your average gray range. How
well,
colorful
I
do you
think
get?
gray is a beautiful color.
Do you love colors? Do you
Well, there are some colors. It's not like super colorful, but there are some red ones, there are some yellow ones, there are some blue ones. But of course, like 99.8% of these sweaters are gray or natural.
I mean, when you look at other people, like you have all the testers and like your designs are super popular. There's like tens of thousands of project pages there. When you see other people use their color sense, are you surprised by how different your designs look in different people's imagination and colors?
I love that. I love that to pieces. I so enjoy seeing these test knits come to life and later on the projects of knitters. There is so much personality in all these projects. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, how cool looks that in hot pink? I can't wear hot pink. It doesn't do really well in my skin tone, but that looks so amazingly cool on these knitters. I love that. And I
And
love that they um, feel confident enough to put their own personality in that while they are knitting that pattern that they are not seeing in a hot pink or in two colors. Or there was actually I think she no, she did a test knit for me. sweater. And she then, with her second one, changed colors here. So she did a 2-color version. That's so amazingly cool to see all these creative knitters working from my patterns and having a lot of fun, obviously, doing it. I really love it. I would not wear like a 5-color whatever thing, but that's just my personal taste. It's just not me, but I love to see it.
Well, the funny part, like when people think about big name designers, right? Like yourself, like Jorge, like Steven, like all these celebrities in knitting world. And we'll talk about how it feels to be one of the big names. When people think about you guys, they think that you just like were born a designer. Tell me like your road to becoming a designer. How did, like, when did knitting even enter your life?
Well, I think, no, I learned that I learned crocheting in school. I somehow forgot about that. So it must have been a really scary experience for me at that early age. So I didn't remember that. That was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, we had 30 years or whatever reunion stuff from our graduation. And they told me that we would have crochet at school. And I said, no, 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 no way. I learned that from these books. No, we had that at school. So, well, I did all that stuff that I do. If it was sewing or crochet or knitting, was when I wanted to have things that I saw. So, okay, so I am able to do that. So at some point, I grabbed these books that we had here. I think it is a German thing that they sold these big books every 2 months or so with whatever, like tutorials in it, photo tutorials. Of course, it was like some years ago, and a few patterns in it, knitting patterns, crochet patterns, sewing patterns, and all that stuff. So I got me these books for my mom and just learned it from these tutorials because I wanted to have these big, fat, oversized, whatever things we did in the 80s. And then I stopped it again. So I did not knit until maybe 2008 or 9 or so. Yeah, maybe. Of course, I had that training. I'm a tailor.
Right.
So after school, I had that tailor training, and then I got pregnant by surprise. So life took its own way. And I think it was 2008 or 9 when I joined Ravelry, or all these blogs were online. Jared Flood. I saw Jared Flood's blog, and he was able to photograph that knitting so beautifully that I wanted to do everything he showed in his blog. Right. It was so beautiful. So I restarted knitting not that long ago. And then I did some test knits for Jorge and Vera and a few others. And always changed that stuff to my own style. So doing a pullover out of a cardigan pattern, asking after I did that, is it okay doing that? And at some point they all said, so write that down, do your own stuff. So it's totally fantastic for us to have you as a tester, but you should do that. And then I started off with a few like recipes, kind of like you do that, and maybe you get that.
Was it difficult for you to learn how to actually write the pattern? Because like when you're a test knitter, you get the beauty of test knitting. And I'm like an avid test knitter. I like last year, I think I did like 30 test knits. And it's always been like my passion to do test knits for other people, because not only you get to see how they write the patterns and how they do construction, but you get to wear something before it becomes available to the general public, right?
Of course. I wish I would have more time to do that. That is so crazy cool to have the first look at a pattern and to be the first one to have that finished sweater or cardigan. I would love to do that more often. It's super rare these years, so
But did it help you with your pattern writing?
definitely, definitely. So I knew from various designers how they would write, and of course, at some points you think so, maybe I would have changed that a bit, or maybe that could have been written differently. So, of course, it's a learning thing through all these years. So my patterns now don't read like the ones that I did 10 years ago. So it's a constant learning thing.
Right.
But that definitely helped that I had so many different writing styles known before.
When you start your design career, and ask me how I know, because this year is the first time I decided to dabble in design. And let me tell you, like, it's my respect for designers just went through the roof when I was writing that first pattern, just because how, like, for the simplest thing, how complicated it is to write a comprehensive pattern that like knitters on all different levels could understand and follow, right? But when I look back at that first pattern, I'm already thinking like, oh, I should have changed that and I should have made that clear. When you look back at your patterns, do you treat them as like your children that they could do no wrong, or do you like see all the flaws in them?
Well, with time, you of course you get all that feedback, or you at some point realize that part of a pattern. You get loads of questions about that. It's not that that pattern is wrong at that point, but it is just that sometimes knitters do read ahead and don't get everything, and then they get confused about numbers and all that stuff. So some parts of older patterns today I would write them different. But these patterns are totally fine. You can work from them. They are correct as they are. I feel that knitters changed through the years. So it's more the last years, I think there are maybe more new knitters that are used to YouTube tutorials or Instagram reels or whatever it is, like used to visual learning,
Yeah.
that are not used to follow words, which could make things a bit difficult for them, and also difficult for me to find a balance between too much writing in the pattern and too less information. So you have to find a balance to not overdo all that explanational stuff.
Yeah, it's always this dance between how much is too much and how much is not enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
But I think I am okay-ish, I would say. So at least the feedback that I get is a good one. So I think my patterns are doable.
right. Well, I'm sure. I mean, you wouldn't be as successful as you are if they weren't. When you look at the Ravelry in 2008 and Ravelry today, it's completely different animal. I mean, it used to be the few first people who joined. They were like super popular. We all know their names. And now there is so many people on Ravelry. There is hundreds of thousands of patterns. It's much harder to make it to that first page. Do you feel like you were lucky to start early? Do you feel like you would be as successful today if you started today?
I think I was lucky to start off at that time. It was actually that I had kind of a dedicated following, just being a test knitter. So not doing anything, just knitting.
Right.
Um, that was definitely a big advantage um to grow in like that speedy that I did that. Well, I actually was much younger at that time. So right now, I don't think that I would be able to put that much energy, time, and effort in it that I did all through these first years. So it was easier because we were less people there and the interaction was more on the platform. So right now, I feel loads of people are using Ravelry as a database,
Right.
just popping in, looking into it, and leaving again and doing something else. Earlier in the years, it was yeah, that community building thing. So it took me ages until I put up my group there. So before we just interacted by direct messages and did not know each other that much. Since I'm not sure when I created that group, but it was different these 12, 15 years ago.
When you look
Um,
at other designers and what they publish, is that a source of inspiration, a source of what's not to even think about, or like, do you see them as competition or your colleagues?
I'm not that competitive in that part of my life. I am. You don't want to play cards with me, but of course, you can't help but seeing these designs. They are there. You see photos of it. You see color combinations. So all that stuff will at some point be processed by your brain. And at some point, there could be a thing like I do use yellow and blue, like someone else did 15 years ago. Um, we are all not inventing the wheel. There are very, very little designers that are super innovative with combining stitches or dimensions, but the majority is not inventing the wheel.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that like 80 years ago, a sweater like this was made. They did not have that social media stuff. They did not take photos of it. So we don't know about that sweater that was there 80 years ago. But I'm not, yeah, no, I don't think that we are the ones inventing all that stuff. It is inspirational to see what others do. I see them more as colleagues, and I actually have quite close connections to a few that I would be able to reach out if I'm not knowing that stitch pattern name that I'm using. So help, how is that called? To not call it pattern ABC. So
Right.
to get to know the right name, or if there is something that that I'm not sure about. So it happens today as it happens like 10 years ago. There are some things construction wise or grading wise. So to make it really fit well for all faces, there are some things to just have in your mind and not forget about it. And every now and then I would just text a few of them and get their input.
I find that like very true, and I found that like I was so touched and so surprised when I came up with like my first or second design, and big name designers would be like, you know what, I'll test for you. And to me it's mind-boggling, because like why would they take time from their busy schedule and do something and help me when they don't have to, right? But there is this sense of community and camaraderie among the designers, because like they can all understand what you're going through and they can appreciate your struggle and they remember them struggling.
No, definitely. And we don't have to do to make the same mistakes. So if there is something that I did that I would say, oh my God, never, never again. So why not share that experience? Um, yes, of course.
Well, another part of design, like universal design struggle, is the productivity, right? Because we're talking like as soon as you came out to the world and you said, I am a knitwear designer, there is certain expectation, and I don't even think it's expectation from public, it's expectation from within, that you're going to keep on producing these designs, and you're going to do it every couple weeks, or like there's a production, basically like a conveyor of designs going on. Do you feel that pressure? How do you deal with that pressure?
Well, I feel it there. It is right now, or since I had to kind of take that break. So no one really realized that break in my productivity, because I had like a backup. Usually I had that kind of backup of 5, 6, 7, 8, or whatever patterns that would just need some tweaks or polishing,
Right.
and would be ready to publish. During these 2 years that I was more visiting the doctors than anything else, I this time ate up all my backup. So right now, and I'm still not there that I again have that backup. So right now I'm like designing from table to mouth. It's and that actually is kind of stressful. I'm not sure if I would have to. And I'm yeah, but I feel like I have to.
Well,
It's
do you feel like there
yeah,
is an expectation from
yeah.
public that you're gonna publish another design in 2 weeks? Or do you think it's like self-imposed expectation?
I think it's both. I think it's a combination of both. Of course, if I would now stop and only promote old stuff, I would still earn money. So it's not that I would have to um get out a design a month or so. But that actually is kind of the goal. So if you're getting something new out, people would look at your older stuff, and so you get that. Well,
Right.
I'm only doing that, so it's I have to make that amount of money to live.
Well, I mean, talking about money, it's more marketing than actual production, right? Because you have 189 designs on Ravelry. And if you guys haven't seen all of them, go take a look at Isabell's Ravelry page. There is a lot of different things there. If you just promoted one old design every other day, you're all set for a year. And
I think so, yeah.
the funny part,
I'm
like,
not good in promoting myself.
well, as a former tester, you know that like if you go to the, like I used to test for few designers that I would go occasionally on their Ravelry. And even though I tested like 13, 15 designs of theirs, I would understand how many designs I haven't seen. And I haven't even noticed, even though like I'm a huge fan of those particular designers, right? And I do so much testing for them. I go on their Ravelry and I'm like, oh, I never knew that they made this shawl or that sweater or whatever, right? So, which shows you, if I'm as a fan don't know about it, vast majority of public never have seen that, and
I
it's all
know, yeah.
about marketing your old stuff. So maybe you should take that pressure off
I
yourself.
know, I know, I know I should, but it's so, oh my God. It's like, oh, yeah, yeah, I know. I'm really not good in promoting myself.
I mean, it's hard because we have this expectation of coming up with a beautiful design, knowing how to write the pattern, knowing how to grade the pattern so it fits every single size and it looks just as beautiful on somebody who is 4 extra large and extra small. And then on top of it, we have to market it and have good communication skills to keep the fan. I mean, it's just impossible pressure for one person, right?
It is a big amount of work. It's, of course, it is still the coolest job in the world. The coolest. but it is at times it's hard. Yeah.
What I noticed, the longer I'm doing it, the more people I meet, the more opportunities arise. So I meet some beautiful yarn dyers, and they coming to me and they're like, please take my yarn and just play with it. No obligation, just play with it. And in comparison, you've been doing it much longer than I am, and you are way more famous. So I'm sure you're getting these offers all the time. How do you learn to say no to certain things? And how do you not overcommit?
I can't say no. I just can't say no. Um, at some point during the years, I learned to just be honest about a time frame that could happen. So telling people it could be a year is not long. So a year, definitely, it could be 2 years, which at some point makes no sense for hand dyers because they don't know if they have that base anymore.
Right.
They don't know if that colorway would be like doing well for them so that they would have that colorway in 2 years still for sale. So being honest about the time frame helps a bit for people who are not able to say no. I'm still not used to getting a good balance out of that. So because there are some yarn dyers or new yarn companies starting up, and you like the idea, you like the passion that they have, so you want to help and promote them with something beautiful. So every now and then that plan that you had made for the next 8 months like shifts, or there's something sneaking in, putting all that stuff at the end, and you think, so okay, we have 3 weeks until the end of that year and 15 unpublished patterns or whatever, or plans, or still yarn there. I have an extra storage room for yarn. Not in that house. It's not in the house. That house is small. At some point, my husband said, so we could actually, we don't have to renovate that house. We could stuff all that yarn around and it would be super isolated and all would be fantastic. So there is too much yarn around me. So I had to rent a storage room for all these beauties. And I probably would need the next 50 years to knit all that yarn.
Well, fingers crossed you have them. So
I don't think that, yeah. And it's also a thing of, to me now, of course, it's like I am in that lucky position to say, if I would be able to say no. All these, even if there is that no obligation, no deadline, no nothing, you still feel like it is there. So you have gotten that yarn. Someone gave you their babies. They are their babies. Exactly the same that these designs are our babies. So there is kind of an obligation, even if they say there is no obligation with coming with it. So it is difficult to find a balance between taking yarn or rather buying it on your own and keeping that independence, the
creative.
which I really like. I really like to be able to do whatever whenever I want. And it's much better that end result is much better if there is no pressure, if there is nothing I have to think about in addition. Give me that yarn and let me alone with it. And then there is, at some point, it could take long, it could be like in 2 weeks. It depends on whatever, how that process is.
Right.
I still don't get how that brain works.
Well,
At some point there is that idea, and then it could go super quick from yarn to pattern, and it could take 2 years, it could take 3 years. which of course doesn't make a lot of sense for yarn companies or smaller businesses.
Well, talking about all these relationships, at some point you understand that, like, you do know that you are a really big name designer at this point. There's not too many people in your league. I mean, just trust me on that. So it comes with the territory when people realize that, and they want you to be helping them to promote their business, whether it's through yarn collaborations, whether it's through teaching classes at the festivals, or going on the retreats and being the teacher there, because your name will sell. Do you ever feel like people try to use you? Do you feel used?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So how do you keep that balance of creating friendships and having collaborations and not feeling like you're just being used?
It is not just being used. It is just, well, let's, well, the reality is that we are used and we are using. So it is good when at some point that balances out. If you are only giving and not getting whatever back. So it doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be anything. But at some point it would be nice to feel that people know that you are giving. So if that doesn't happen, it's no fun and not nice.
Yeah.
Most of the times, or yeah, it's like that 99.8% of the times, it's definitely that you feel that people are grateful for you doing that promotional stuff for them. And that they, whatever, it could be just a coffee or a beer or whatever, just to feel that they know that you're not, it's not that I'm only doing that promotional stuff there. So if I'm going to a festival, I would, of course, tell them I would be there so that they could use that fact that I would be there. Being in a festival for me is getting in touch with the knitters. It's seeing all these pullovers there, talking to my customers and saying thank you for their support. So it's there are two sides.
Right. And it's
Um,
really give you that energy supply that you need when you're feeling low, because then you remember why you're doing it and who really appreciates you. And it's not
yes,
all,
of course,
sometimes
of course.
sometimes it's helpful to step away from the industry and just take a bird eye view and remind yourself like why you love doing what you're doing in the first
Of
place.
course, of course. I think that's in all jobs and in all parts of our lives, it's the same. So at some point you feel like, oh shit. Yeah, it is. There is, there would be, it is at some point, it's hard work. You have to knit.
Right.
You have to
And
use your.
I think the reason this interview is so helpful to so many people that you don't even know is because we have this idea of designers who made their name for themselves, having whole crew of people knitting for them, making samples, writing patterns, taking pictures, and all that jazz. And when they know that it's actually you who's struggling with all of that and trying to balance all these balls in the air, I feel like the respect for what designers do goes up.
Well, I am really in a lucky position. My son is like 29 years old. I started early. And my husband is doing all that stuff at home. So I have so much support here on my base that I am able to work like 12 hours a day.
Right.
Um, that is not possible for everyone. So if you would have to run a family in addition,
Yeah.
well, at some point I did that. At some point in my life, I did that, but it was only my son and me. So it was a two-person family, but still, and I had two other jobs in addition. So at some point, I did all that, but right now, or since I don't know, since I started actually, I would not have dared to take that step into that self-employment without my husband.
Right.
So without knowing that he would be doing all that stuff here and he would take over even more if I would need more time for that, I would never have done that. And I'm not completely alone. So there is Claudia helping me with the pattern support, which is amazingly cool because she is much more nice and honest and polite than I am.
I think you're very nice. I had really the
At
great.
some point, if you get a question at Friday night, coming back from wherever you were, and you get an hour later, you see the next question through another channel. At some point, and you're not each day is the same. So you're not as nice as you were yesterday or whatever. So at some point, it could be that I would like think like, oh my God. And that's the time when I forward these questions.
Right. Well, talking about things that make you go, oh my God, let's talk about naming your projects because yesterday I was trying to come up with the name for the sweater that I'm about to publish. And after like 7 hours of scrolling through love poems and songs and arias and painting, I was like, oh my God, how these people coming up with the names? Because every time I would come up with the idea, I would go on Ravelry and there is already 17 project by that name. How do you deal with it?
That happens when I think so, oh my God, that name is cool. And then I'm looking it up and it's like 127 pages. No way that you add that next to it. It's not easy. Naming is not easy. Sometimes it is easy because sometimes that name comes while designing. So sometimes you know that from the start, it has to be named like that. And even if that name would be out there like for 5,000 times, you would connect that name, that feeling or expression or whatever it is with your project. And sometimes this actually is the last thing that holds me up from publishing because there is no name to it. I love name meaning sites, websites. So like having a meaning or a feeling or whatever in mind. So I put in that whatever, let's say winter. So you get in winter and you get all these names that have something to do with winter.
Right.
And I'm super weird. I need that name to look good. So when I see it written down, if it doesn't look good, even if the meaning is right, I would not use it. So it's totally yeah. But yeah. So I'm writing these names and on over that first page of my pattern and take photos of all these names and compare what I like best. The name for that, it's Bergliebe, which translates to mountain love. And it actually was, I was asking when I put that out for a test if there would be some suggestions for names. This name didn't come up, but it was the explanation for the suggested name was kind of because of the Bergliebe. And I saw that word and I thought, oh my God, that's so beautiful. That word is so beautiful. The meaning is beautiful, but that word looks so cool. I have to name that.
Well, I have a question about that because 2/3 of those names that out of the 189 projects that's on Ravelry, I personally cannot pronounce. So I have to go into like YouTube, the pronunciation of that or whatever. Are you ever concerned, like, who is your main target audience? Do you have a target audience in mind when you're coming up with the name?
No, I actually hesitated to use German German names before. So actually that one and the last one were German words that I probably no, I have one cardigan that is called Mariechen, which would be in my head pronounced German, but it could be pronounced in different languages, and it's just that little Marie, like with that ending on. I did not use German words a lot, but other than that, no. It's there are some Irish or Welsh or Japanese or whatever names in it. They just have that meaning or express what I feel about that design. And in addition, they look good. So it's that combination of meaning and looking good that.
Do you have fun listening to people butcher the names of those projects when they try to pronounce it?
We had so much fun. I was meeting friends from the US during Barcelona. One for the first time, one for like the first time in 6 years. So another first time. And we had so much fun. I had so much fun listening to them trying to pronounce it. But they did well in the end. Like at some point, it was perfect.
Well, you mentioned that right now it's sort of food to table.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing in the works. Is that true? Like, is there nothing in the works, or do you have all the design ideas for the next 10 years in your head and it just matter of implementing it?
Yeah, it's just that there is not enough time. I would have ideas for the next whatever. So to work up all my yarn for the next 50 maybe. No, it's like it's of course it takes time, even if you have that idea.
Right.
If you're working like me, doing that sample, doing, of course, swatching, like you have to choose the yarn. So you have to do some swatches. Even if you worked with that yarn before, you have to do that special swatch for that project. So you have the swatching going on. You have the sample knitting. You have, of course, pattern writing. There should be a pattern. There is a test. There is the editing going on. You have to send it to the translators and all that stuff. It takes time. And I am not doing really well with patterns at the same stage. If I have loads of patterns at the same stage, so I'm trying to stagger it.
Right.
So there are projects that I would have to write the pattern for, or not, well, what I have usually are notes. No one would be able to read these notes. And if they are old, I am not able to read these notes. So it's like a page of numbers and exclamation marks. So remember, size 9 has to do whatever, or like arrows pointing in. So attention, please, such things. So there is a real pattern to write at some point in that process. There are probably 10 or 20 laying around, missing half of a sleeve because I'm not allowed to finish that sample before everything else is done. So, but still, it doesn't feel like that confident that I was before I had all these doctor's appointments, and so yeah.
Right. Let's talk about the swear word in the world of knitting that starts with S. swatch. What's your relationship with swatching? Because there are people who, like me, who like if there is any way to avoid swatching, they'll find it. And then there are people like Cecilia Campacciaro, who I highly love and respect, who has pizza boxes filled with swatches, and her entire house is insulated with those pizza boxes. Where you stand in that um, spectrum?
Um, I have to confess, when I'm doing this, I'm not doing test knits anymore, not that much. So it's like once in 5 years or so. Um, I probably would be the one skipping it at that point. Um, and then, of course, choosing a yarn that I worked with and kind of know what to do or where to see, where at that thing to see that I should go down a needle size and just rip it out. Actually, I love tasting yarn. So if it's a new yarn or a cool color combination, I would make like that Friday night party out of it, putting all that new yarn out, winding it, and sitting there and doing my swatches. I think I really love it.
What do you think people misunderstand about how to properly swatch?
There is definitely some yeah, misunderstanding out there. There are sometimes I get questions about when they read that gauge is like, let's say 20 stitches by 28 rows, they would cast on 20 stitches and work 28 rows. Um, yeah. So the ideal swatch is much bigger than that part that you have to measure. And it's much nicer for you to see a bigger part of that fabric that you get. I had a one knitter in our we have kind of a knit club here, or we had that here, so it kind of died during that COVID time, but we had that, so we would meet once a week. And she was like that, she did gauge swatches like that. You can't measure it, you can't feel it, you can't see it. If you're using two yarns together, let's say like a mohair and a fingering weight yarn in two colors, you need a bigger frame for it to see how it looks, to feel it, and also to have like an impression of that weight of the drape or whatever. So if it's like, let's say 5 or 6 inches, a square of 5 or 6 inches, you have a better guess than with a, a tiny piece of knitting. And it's
Time
much more
spacing.
fun.
Yeah. Um, do you love teaching? Is that because you don't have patience for it, or like what's
No, I don't want to be the center of the interest. It's me still like sweating like crazy when I'm standing in front of 20 people, not knowing the words, getting like that German and English mixed up and feeling super silly. And it's just that I'm doing better in my corner here with one cat here, the other one there, no one talking to me not talking to, no, they don't listen to me, and I don't talk to my table. So I'm kind of a quiet person during most time of the year. Um, no, I'm actually not one of them. There are there are colleagues that are teachers by nature.
right?
Like they are you just sit there and think, so yeah, more. I don't feel like I am that person. So it's mm, stressful for me to
Right.
teach.
Well, I'm so glad that you agreed to talk to me and not just your cats. And we had this lovely conversation, and I got to know you a little bit better. And I do hope we'll get to sit and chat sometime at another
Of
yarn
course, we
festival.
should. We should. Barcelona is always worth a trip.
Right. Oh, actually, I'm going to Swiss Yarn Festival, and I think you might be there. No.
No. They actually asked me to teach, and I said no. And right now, I can't remember why.
Well, if you change
There
your mind,
must be something else that was during that time. So I'm actually not sure if I can just come to visit that festival. So there could be, um, I'm not sure what it was, but there is something in my calendar around that time.
well, I'm sure
Um,
I'll run into you somewhere sometime
of
again.
course,
And then that
there's
beer.
Berlin Knits next year.
Oh,
Mm,
that beer is on me. My treat. We'll get to sit and chat and just
yes.
not stress over it. Thanks so much, Isabel. Thank you for being my guest today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.